Welcome back. Welcome back. Day five, World Unity Week, day five of the 99 Days of Peace through Unity. We are celebrating air today, and what a joy and a privilege and a pleasure to sit down with the remarkable Gary Malkin to talk about one of his visions and his dreams. Gary, good morning. I know it's super early for you on the west coast of the United States as we begin our second morning plenary. Good morning and welcome, Gary Malkin.
Thank you, Ben. It's such an honor. And I remember when you said, I've got a date, I got a time, and it's 5 a.m. Do you want it? And I went, let's do it.
We are celebrating the power of the yes. We just had an incredible conversation with Diane Williams and Deborah Mulder of the Evolutionary Leaders and Source of Synergy Foundation. You know, Gary, everything begins with a yes. So thank you for saying yes to being with me. I'm super excited to dive into this. You're such a genius with your musical, your creativity, your vibrational intelligence, and your gifts to so many people. If people have not heard of you by now, they should go to Spotify and put in Gary Malkin and listen to some of your world-class contributions to so many different fields. Your graceful passages, perhaps being amongst your most well-known pieces of work, but you have such a diversity of offerings, and you are a seven-time seven-time Emmy Award winner. Today, Gary, we're going to be talking about the living library, harnessing the power of music to feed a world hungry for experiential wisdom. Now, I'm actually going to start with the subtitle first.
Okay.
What do you mean by a world hungry for experiential wisdom? Tell us what you mean by that.
Okay. All right. So I was loving what Diane Williams just shared about inner technologies. You know, what I've been very interested in for the last 25 years since Graceful Passages came through, which was a life-changing pull pulled me away from Hollywood into an inner inquiry, was you can't plant seeds into soil that is not fertile. And increasingly, the analogy holds up that if the soil is an analogy for our capacity to receive information in a state that is receptive and is fertile enough to grow into something that would respond. If we can't do that, we're in serious trouble. And I really do believe that what's happened, in fact, I'm going to just share something with you, if I may. I'm just going to share the screen. I'm just going to show you a couple of things. Share screen. Wait, here we go.
That was working. Yeah. You're good. Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. And I'll just go to this. Just a few things about this. Here we go. Slideshow. There we go. Okay, so this idea that we're living in not only wisdom deficit times, but we're living in a place where I'm going to share this movie with you, that just imagine that the soundtrack that you're about to see is actually a metaphor for our nervous systems, right? And a lack of coherence, a lack of heart coherence. It's not just a lack of heart coherence, it's a lack of actually being a vehicle through which you can have an internal experience of the multiple intelligences of human beings, which is what's happened. Is we've grown up in a culture, we've allowed this culture to normalize into being hyper rational, right? Actually, I'm going to screw this. I'm just going to go here and just talk to you. It's better. But as a result of allowing our frontal lobe to control our reality, we have subjugated the wisdom of our hearts and the wisdom of our souls and the wisdom of our bodies. Each of these intelligences have different frequencies, right? And so what I've discovered when Graceful Passages came out was that when we can use music as a way to corral our what I call awareness fragmentation disorder, when we can corral the multiple frequencies of our different intelligences to actually come into this innate wholeness, it substantially changes how we receive information, because we're allowing our heart wisdom to be as equal jewel to the intellectual, right? And there's something about, some magical thing about music, Ben, that when you design music to support your ability to receive information that moves your heart and moves your soul as well as your mind, it's not an additive, it's an exponential difference in the way things happen. And this, I've always been interested, Ben, in what reaches the broadest possible audience, what would have the greatest possible trim tab. And to talk to the bubble, I'm just not interested. I'm really interested in how can we touch and move people in a way that makes them be moved to the point where they're even surprised at how moved. And that's what this modality of alchemical wisdom has created, and that was discovered when we offered graceful passages. I'm going to give you an example of it, in fact, but I will play this video now because it's a beautiful. It came from Heart Math, and it's a beautiful example of not only why film scoring works, but how metaphorically it's accurate to how we currently are. So here we go. Look at this. Check it out.
That's compelling, Gary. That's compelling.
So look at what happened. The chaos of the 3D world that we all know and love and are very familiar with. Somehow the mathematics and the beauty and the emotion, everything that went in the artistry and the beauty of Pachelbel's canon made sense of the chaos. And that's what I contend is going on in our nervous systems. And this is the great opportunity we have, is to wake us up to the reality of our fragmentation. And so what I feel is happening for most of the population on the planet today is that there is an increasing level. It's like that frog that you drop into the pot of hot water and it jumps out. But we're incrementally allowing ourselves to boil ourselves to death with the hyper rationalization. And I would say if there was an image that epitomized how most of people feel on the world today, it would be this image. And I feel like because we live in a perfect storm, where it's not okay to talk about loss and illness and death, and it's not okay to talk about you not feeling good, and it's vulnerability is a no-no, and there's all these things that have conspired together to create a perfect storm of people struggling in their nervous system and in their heart and their souls without vehicles to actually create a different reality inside their inner experience. And then the unwanted costs of hyper-rationalism. This is this idea that where everything that all the problems that we have are going to be solved by our minds, right? It's a complete illusion. I love this quote by Einstein. So I believe that this thing that I want to share, this is a term I discovered, I created. I'm only a composer, right? So I thought, why don't I come up with a term that makes it sound really important, like, a scientific term, awareness fragmentation disorder. And I call it the psycho-spiritual pandemic of our times, from the subjugation of heart, body, soul, IQ, vibrational IQ. These are really serious problems that have undermined the soil of our attention spans, the soil of our nervous systems, the soil of this premise that I have, that music has a destiny to fulfill that we are just barely scratching the surface of, that will help us cultivate what I call vibrational intelligence, which is the capacity to feel resonance. You know, our minds are not going to get through this, right? I'm going to get out of this now. So I want to share an example of what I think is a modality to do this. But if everything is made up of vibrations, then we have the capacity to actually say, mind is not going to sort through the overwhelm of everything's going on. We need to develop a deeper intelligence that's innate in all of us that I call VQ, which is the ability to feel whether I resonate, whether I am entrained energetically and vibrationally to you. You know what I mean? You'll see when I play something for you, but I want to hear what your thoughts are in response to this.
No, I think it's it's a profound opening, Gary, and I think everybody can connect and understand, perhaps to different levels, but everybody to some degree can connect and understand the transformational power of music, and for to take us back through time, to take us into a state change, to calm, to reflect, to center. I think we all get at some level that you're onto something here, and that music is perhaps an underused resource for when it comes to, as what you talk about, the wisdom deficit. I like that term. And how can music be a greater tool or a greater asset as we work individually and collectively to meet the need for insight, wisdom, knowledge, peace, coherence, and all these beautiful gifts that you're referring to. So I think we're with you so far, brother, and we're
Yeah.
looking forward to
So
where you're taking us next.
yeah, okay. Let me just go here then. It's what happened with Graceful Passages was we Michael Stillwater and his wife Doris and I. It's an amazing story how it all evolved, but there was a George Soros a grant that was being offered, and it was an artist's response to death and dying, right?
Mm,
And he came to me and said, if I was dying, I know whose music I would want to be hearing. It was a beautiful and lovely comment. But when we discovered this genre, that in a way was lying right under our nose, like in the radio dramas of the 30s, right? We simply scored spoken word as if the spoken word was the film itself, right? Now, nobody had ever done that before, quite like Graceful Passages, with wisdom, and a particular kind of wisdom that, looking back, we just were brailing our way into the dark, not knowing exactly what was happening. But Michael Stillwater and I were meaning junkies, and
mm,
we were lovers of tenderness and intimacy. So when we had people like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and Jyoti and Ramdas and Thich Nhat Hanh, and we asked, if you were going to speak to the one person you love most in this world and know that they were going to die tomorrow, what would you say to them? The first half hour, they were so used to being interviewed that and anything that they said would be acceptable. They were so used to people thinking, fantastic. We kept on staying, that's great. And we're looking for something with more skin in the game from your personal heart. And what we found was that the ingredient of tenderness allowed people, and spontaneous, like this extemporaneous, it wasn't about something written. This really, watching how Graceful was formed, deserves to be studied. And this is why the alchemical wisdom genre that is the basis of the living library concept is so powerful. The presence of tenderness, like not feigned, like the real deal tenderness, this being moved to say and share the sum total of your life experience, and to speak it extemporaneously, and then to edit it out, all the extraneous ums and so's and veries and inner judgment moments and all that, and just clean it out like you're grabbing beautiful flowers from a mountain, take out all the weeds, and then suddenly just the flowers emerge. And then we score it to an 80-piece orchestra, right? Like a film. And that's what Graceful Passages was. And suddenly when we heard what resulted, it parted the seas of the culture's detritus, of the culture's attention fragmentation, right? And I can see in this call, I had so many like so many things to talk about, and I put it in a PowerPoint because I didn't know for sure. I know you said you'd be here, but I didn't know it's God. How's Ben going to be here if he was here in the morning and he's here at the night? It's amazing. So, but the bottom line is that when we are touched, moved, and inspired in that way, something rearranges. And I just think that what I need to do is play an example of this and trust that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like the experience of it will get why I think the Living Library is a great idea. So I'm going to go past this. Lot of
No, I love that, Gary. I love what you just shared about getting to the tenderness, even from those extraordinary, spiritual leaders that you captured for Graceful Passengers. That's really, really beautiful. So take us in, take us into play something. Let's have the experience, and we'll go forward from there.
just to prep it a little bit with saying, in a natural state, we think at approximately 1,000 to 1,600 words per minute, right? And when we talk with one another, we speak at 100 to 150 words per minute. But how many words per minute can be shared in order for our hearts and souls and vibrational capacities to fully feel, connect, absorb, and assimilate what's actually happening? And I contend that it's much less. And this is what you'll see is that so this is what I just described. We did this Graceful Passages, and I'm just going to go to the one that's I'm going to do a world premiere right now. No one's heard this before. And I realized this is what we're going to do. Hold on. Here we go. I'm going to go right to the Lynn Twist piece because I'm so excited. Well, first, no, I just want to share this. This is a great example. So people think when the Deepak Chopra one came along that he sounds enlightened and so amazing. Ironically, as much as I love Deepak, he was the hardest person to get to be tender, and it was fascinating. But watch look what it sounds like when he just speaks with it before it's set to music.
In these times of hardship and economic suffering, a lot of people have asked me, how can I mitigate the suffering I'm going through? No, I'll start again. In these times of economic hardship and suffering.
So you get that,
In these times of.
So then we created the wisdom film that's now setting that talk that I had for him in the studio for an hour and a half. And this is what it turned into.
Relax your body. Observe your breath as it goes in and out. Now move your awareness into the area of your heart. Allow your ego to move out of the way, and you will get in touch with your spirit. Be grateful.
So you see, that I just want to make sure I'm sharing. Was I sharing? Did you see the visuals?
We didn't see the visuals. We could only hear the audio, Gary.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, well that's fine. So now I'm going to share the latest things. But you see, but the spaces that he spoke with, we created that based on when you bring music in to allow yourself to feel what's being said, it creates the opportunity for you to hear the words, not just with your mind, your linear mind, but with your heart and soul as well. So how many words a minute can you say that would allow all of you to absorb it in a way that can shift your energy field, right? So that's what the Living Library vision is all about, is now that people are more distracted than ever before, How can we actually use the destiny that music has to fulfill of attending to this challenge of our attention and our distractedness? So I'm going to share this thing that is brand new, and it was inspired initially by when I was watching what was happening in the Ukraine. And my family, my father's side of the family, comes from the Ukraine. He was a Russian Jewish immigrant that came over from the Ukraine region. And I noticed, what was I feeling as the border was being assembled and about to be attacked? And there was this energetic ancestral blood heartbreak that was going on. And I just said, I just have to create something. The dream has always been with graceful passages. Graceful passages is essentially the fulfillment of the answer to the prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? Death, dying, illness, suffering, right? I've always wanted to put a stake in the ground for the sequel, which would be on courage, basically in the eye of the storm, a companion for adversity and hope. And I just intuitively went to my archive. I have about 600 hours of 130 thought leaders, hour and a half interviews. And these recordings are not normal, Ben. They're the kind of recordings that are like what I said when I did Graceful Passages, which was basically, I want to bring us back in, if you can bring us both back in together, because I don't want to just look at me.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, thank you. But it's so much more comforting to see that you're there. It's like, I'm talking to myself. But it's like this idea that courage is what's needed now. Courage is our moment of choice. It's what Deborah and Diane were talking about. The meme of the experience of courage, right? And so I decided, unlike any other time that I've ever done, I looked into my archive, and I have about literally 130 thought leaders that I interviewed with questions like what we did with Graceful. And these are the most disarmingly intimate, tender. I mean, when I asked Jean Houston to speak, at first she basically started with, if not you, who, and if not now, wow, when, and all this. And I said, Jean, there are millions of people who just want to hear you speak tenderly like a mother guiding somebody through the forest. Could you talk to me like that? And she went, you want that? And I went, if you would, And suddenly her voice dropped down 2 octaves, and she told this story about like a fairy tale, literally like we were a child. And I have people who have listened to this recording similar to when I recorded Bob Proctor. And the only person that's ever heard the voice that Bob Proctor spoke in that interview was his son, when he heard it on one of these devices for the first time and started to cry because he hadn't heard that voice from his father since he was 5 years old. Again, the delivery system of tenderness, right? So I'm going to play this world premiere. What I decided was I went in my archives and I saw Lynn Twist, who's my favorite mentor. I call her my unofficial mentor. And I looked in the archive and I saw this one folder that said courage. And it was a 30-minute talk about courage. And I knew it would take a lot of time, because in order to whittle it down to 6 minutes, right? And to do it in a way that was respectful of the process. That's what I did with Graceful. A lot of them were longer interviews, and we just whittled them down some continuity. And I have to tell you, Ben, it mirrored the process that I've been going through. I have been struggling myself. This being has been struggling in my body, in my lower embodiment, in my lower 3 chakras. I've just not been able to do anything about it. And so as I'm working on this courage track, I'm finding the agency. So now, after 3 weeks, I'm swimming every day. I've lost 18 pounds. I'm eating vegetarian. I'm sleeping better and everything. And I actually really do believe that part of it is because of this track. So I'm going to go to it. And it's 8 minutes, which is a lot. I'm really praying that the meme that believes that you have to keep on talking in order to keep people's attention is just not necessary, So I'm just going to trust that those who are here on this call are here for a reason, and that you'll be able to experience this courage track. Scoring it was the most. It was like the first time I scored a piece of spoken word the way I did when I did Graceful Passages 20 years ago. I had a lot of resources then, and I really poured $150,000 into Graceful Passages, and now I don't have those resources, and I decided, F it, I'm just gonna do the best I could on Courage, right? So I just want to hear a little bit of what she sounds like without it, because it's important for me to justify why the Living Library. Why is it such an important spoke in the wheel on moving forward on the evolution of the world's dreams and hopes and dreams? Here, I'm just going to play. Here we go.
You just want to play the sound, or you want to play the
That's
video?
the sound. Yeah, I don't need to see Lynn's face. I just want you to hear this.
Okay.
The greatest horror. It's possible to find the greatest human being you've ever been. It comes when we call for it, because it's part of who we are. And when we're willing to call for it, it matches the mountain that's in front of us.
Now, what you're hearing is the result of 9 hours of editing 30 minutes down to 8 minutes. And it took a transcription, it took work, it took taking all the extraneous out. But the power of this genre is that when you do end up with the Amrit, the true gift of it as a transmission, it gives you the ability to let music do the work of helping you integrate the meaning so you can hear with heart and soul. So listen, here it is, the world premiere of the heart of who you are. And if there's any justification for why the Living Library is an idea whose time has come, this is it. Just close your eyes and allow this to happen.
In times of the greatest adversity, the greatest challenge, the greatest fear, the greatest horror, it's possible to find the greatest human being you've ever been. It comes when we call for it, because it's part of who we are. And when we're willing to call for it, it matches the mountain that's in front of us. Every time. In my life, I've known courage. I've known it was there, and I've known when it's gone. It's gone when we feel discouraged. It's gone when we don't know the way through, when we feel like retreating, when sadness or grief or overwhelm or fear seems to loom larger than anything in the whole wide world. But our heart can hold all of that and still exhibit courage, because courage comes from the heart. Courage is the most bold and powerful expression of the heart. Courage is the heart at its finest, leading us into realms of being that we didn't know existed. We all have it, and we all express it, because it's who we are, and it's who you are right now. In the face of anything, just call for it, and it'll be there. happened to me. I was in New York, and my son was deathly ill. He was almost gone. His breathing was labored. His heartbeat was sketchy. There were doctors around him, but all of them were interns. No one seemed to be in charge. He was getting weaker and weaker. His liver collapsed, and then his lungs. And I looked in his eyes, and he looked at me, asking me with those eyes to stop what was happening to him. The fear was still there. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweaty. It was still chaotic. I didn't know who to talk to or what to say. But I felt a kind of power that was beyond anything I've ever known. The will of a mother to have her son live became who I was. The strength in my body was like that of a superwoman. I felt a divine energy flood through my fingers as I touched his hand. And through my eyes as I looked into his. I put my head on his heart. I could hear it was still beating. And I pulled for that to recover. In the case of the courage I exhibited in the crisis with my son, I know he fought with every cell of his body to make it across the line to life. I know there were medical people who did miraculous things. But I also know that the courage that came from my heart had an intensity and a power that I had never known before. When I look back on that time, I realize that courage is always there, waiting to be used. When we're afraid, courage embraces that fear. It holds that fear in a container that's greater and deeper and more powerful, because it puts its arms around it and lifts it up as an offering. Now I know that no matter what happens to me, and no matter what happens to you, if you're willing to call on your heart to bring you the courage that you need to get through it, it will always be there. And it's infinite, it's eternal, and its strength is unbounded. Nothing is greater than the courage to live life, the courage to save life, the courage to contribute to life, and the courage to make a difference. My wish for you is that you find the courage that you need, no matter how difficult, no matter how crushing. Know that you can never be crushed. You can never be brutalized. Cruelty can never really touch the heart of who you are. You have the courage to meet that adversity and pull yourself through. Who you are is a being that's filled with light, that's filled with kindness, that's filled with strength, that's filled with love, and that is made of courage. Each of us has it. Call on it, and it'll be there. Because it's the heart of who you are.
So did you notice, what was your experience?
It's amazing, Gary. It's her words and her voice and your music. It just combined to take us to take me, and I'm sure others who are listening to this, to a very empowered place, a place where you feel you can meet the mountains that are before us. And yeah, it literally steals your courage. You've done a brilliant job, Gary. That's amazing.
Well, there's
Amazing.
so much about this genre, Ben, that I know that it's the kind of, one of the reasons I love Lynn so much is that she says that phrase, if you come to here to help me, no, thank you. But if you know that your liberation is inextricably connected to mine and to this vision, join me. This Living Library project is that, because the healing doesn't happen in the fast lane. So in the intimacy of your private moments, you notice how there's more spaciousness after these phrases, because it takes the time for your heart and soul to catch up with your mind. And suddenly you're one. The innate fullness and wholeness of yourself comes back together into one piece. And that's why I'm in love with this genre. And that's why the Living Library is an idea whose time has come. I just, I have all kinds of justifications and understandings, but I do feel that now, having done, like what Sarah Crum and I have done, these improvised transformances, she gets down on me all the time because I said, it's too long. She said, Gary, it takes time for the cellular coalescing of all of us to drop into wholeness on every dimension, right? And the longer it is, the actual more fruitful it becomes as we show up more in the fullness of who we are and the beauty of who we are and the authenticity and all that stuff. So I really hope to find a team of people. I just got word that I'm going to share with this video that this picture. Julie Krull has agreed to have Living Library Project be a subsidiary of the Good for the Whole. So it's going to be a nonprofit venture that's going to be allied to the Good for the Whole. Wonderful. Julie, if you're there, I love you. Thank you so much. And this is a dream that recognizes that the mind and the frontal lobe and the intellectual consciousness of human beings is not going to solve the problem. And that this is a collaborative effort that could help me take the 400 hours of spoken messages from wisdom keepers of our time to have, my dream is to find 5 or 10 of the best philanthropic film composers on the planet and give them access to the library of these raw recordings of spoken word. And the idea is to actually have this genre be a legacy that we leave behind that becomes something that people recognize as a cultivation tool, So that's the dream. I'm just going to put it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good of the whole. Julie's here with us, of course, and she's posting it. Gary, I want to do something just because I don't want to race away from what we just experienced. That
Great.
was, and you, if I understand correctly, this is quite a recent thing that you've come across and created this. So maybe I misunderstood that, but it's had this impact on you recently of transforming your daily rituals and practice and exercise, and also your eating, and like this piece has really transformed you, or is transforming you in the present moment. My mum is here, and I saw her soaking all of that up. And like, here's the other thing too, Gary. I think everybody, one way or another, is going through a hard time at the moment. I think one of the reasons why what you're offering is so special is because one way or another, remember 6 months ago we did the longest night program
Right.
on the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, to just give voice and space and breath on this day of air to the grieving and to the challenge. And I love that you've got this project, which is almost like following on from Graceful Passengers dealing with grief. And now it's all about courage to face what we are all facing. Everybody's facing a lot right now. But I just wanted to get another reflection, maybe another voice in here,
Great.
briefly, just to share with us how that was experienced, Mum, by you. So I'm going to bring you up here. I know it's getting late at night in Melbourne, but that was amazing. There's Lynn Twist's words and Gary's music, Mum. How did you experience that?
Well, it was magnificent, Gary, and as always, you always rise well above whatever the bar line is. Well, really wonderful. Just briefly, then, going back to the first video you showed of all the events happening in a big city and people pushing and shoving and being totally distracted. I must say, I find that here, if I put music on, I don't mind if people jump in front of me. I'm not shooting the horn and getting irritated. It is just such a wonderful thing. It's pretty right kind of beautiful music, cheerful music that's really good for the moment. And I experienced that recently. With what we've just experienced, then you're right. It does, that beautiful comment about the heart and courage. Of course, if we don't have courage, of course, you wouldn't step outside the door. But we're all asked to have our courage tapped into at all times. And I think presently we here in this household are struggling in a way, and certainly not like Ukraine, and the poor soul, more beautiful people in Ukraine are suffering. But all of us have suffering. And I think just trying to complete in this household here, the monumental task that Jim and our family have to complete an epic experience that somehow with Mungo, and it changes all the time. We move from one little laneway to another one where there's more challenges. It never seems to stop. So,
Joan, if you could bring your mic up to your mouth, it's hard to hear a lot of you. So the microphone seems to be hitting against something. So if you can bring your mic closer to your mouth, that would be nice to hear you better.
Oh, anyway, so I don't.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know whether you heard me or not, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I did. Essentially, yeah.
But thank you, Ben. But courage is certainly we need plenty of it, and to aid and abet courage, we certainly need music, and of which you give us beautiful music. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. I know that we're needing to wrap up, and I just wanted to share this visual just so that you can see it's real, or at least just so something can imprint you. It's here. So the idea of the living library beyond one lifetime. So this is a vision of understanding, and this is the beginning of a recording that we're going to set to images, because I tried last night till 1 a.m. I couldn't finish it, but
the great cathedrals of Europe were built by visionary artists who knew they would never see their work's completion in their own lifetime. Guarded by scholars and librarians, the sacred knowledge of the ages has been housed within monasteries and temples across the planet.
Yeah, I actually worked to, I'm setting this to music now, but it's really, I'm ready to put the stake down and say this, if I had a year to live, this is all I care about really, is actually finding a way to take all these amazing recordings I have, almost 600 hours, 130 thought leaders over the last 25 years, and to actually bring it to the world, which is why I formed a partnership with Circle of Wisdom with Kit Thomas. And in the event of my death, and even before, we're going to bequeath all of the voices to the Circle of Wisdom, so that whether they get scored to music or not, they will be manicured, they'll be cleaned, they'll be supported to actually serve humanity now, rather than wait for them to be scored. And then the ones that can be scored will. So this thing is moving along, and it's been proven by the success of graceful passages. And as a genre, alchemical wisdom is an idea whose time has come. And I just want to thank you, Ben, for 5 a.m. I put the stake in the ground and I said, I'm going to say, this is really happening. This is what my life's devoted to. And I really believe in it. And for anybody that wants to know more about it or support it or talk further about the evolution of this genre, please contact me, Gary at wisdomoftheworld.com. I just want to thank you for your love, your confidence, Ben, and the opportunity that I've had to set Shelley's work to spoken word to music. And now I just finished last night the Dot Maver track. I hope we get to share it in the Global Coherence Pulse today, but wait till you hear it, because it's beautiful. And when it gets set to visual, it'll be a asset that the World Unity Week will be able to utilize for the decade, for the next till 2030,
Bravo, Gary. Bravo. You are really amazing, Gary Malkin, and you're on fire. You're on fire. You've gotten up, you have declared this, the living library, closing the meaning deficit, closing the wisdom deficit, using these extraordinary messages set to your incredible original music. I mean, what a gift, Gary. I really just want to take a moment to acknowledge that you are absolutely living your life's purpose. What a thing to say. If I had a year to live, this is what I would do. If you can say that with as much conviction as what you've just said, then we know we're on the right pathway. So may you live many, many, many more years to continue gifting this beautiful, beautiful work.
And I know we have to end, but I wanted to say one last thing, because it was so powerful. In the last year, and thank you for that, Ben, bless your heart. But in the last year, we've lost Desmond Tutu, Thich Nhat Hanh, we've lost Elizabeth many years ago, Ram Dass, and Bob Proctor, right? I've had the great privilege of interviewing and recording and setting to music all those people, and some of them are actually set to visuals to serve the reality that in today's reality, people don't listen anymore without looking at something. And as you know, if you can park the mind in awe with beautiful images of nature, the spoken word music alchemy goes in the heart deeper. So that's what that's about. But what happened when these people died? People gravitated to those recordings online like they were so hungry to experience these phenomenal wisdom keepers, right? Because they're part of the fabric of who we are. They've been giving to the culture for so long that it was proof to me that these recordings are timeless, and they're different every time you hear them because of where you are in the river of your life's journey, right? So there's a lot of justifications for why this needs to happen. And yes, it is costly to produce each one, but they're forever, right? So thank you. I just wanted to mention how valuable it was for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people when they died, and how it served them online. And I just love that happened, just for people to get it,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you for this. I know you have to set up for the next, so I don't want to extend that, but just thank you again for the opportunity. And
shall we finish with a transformance, Gary?
That sounds great. And yeah, that sounds wonderful. In fact, I have one that is for closure if you want me to use it.
Okay, I've got one ready to go.
All right, good. Go for it.
Integrating our experience, chill or...
Fantastic. Choose whatever you got.
Let's go.
Oh, no. No, let's not do that one. I'm going to pick the one I have.
Okay.
Because it's for the millennial. It was done as
Go ahead. We got to close in a minute.
All right, I got it. Hold
Elsewhere
on.
on the
Hold on. Hold on. I know you got to do it. So this is the one that was designed for closure. So I just want to take it. Bear with me. Oh my God, I hope I don't blow it. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Sharing. All right. I used the other one for people that are where my genre might be too emotional for the younger audience. So this one is perfect for this moment, right? And here we go.
Let's close our time together with a moment of silence. Listening in to each other. Being present with each other. Feeling the unity in amongst our beautiful diversity. And let's face forward as we move on to our next engagement. Taking with us the essence of this experience so that it may live on. As we continue moving through life, creating new experiences and building on what we've done together today.
Beautiful, Gary Malkin. Thank you, brother. What a joy to sit down with you and benefit, from your incredible gifts. And right with you, brother. We're with you and we love you. And on we go. John Raymer, if you can end the live
I
stream.
am here. I am here. Beautiful,
Yes.
Gary. We made a
Love you,
beautiful
John.
day to support you, brother. Oh my God. I'm going to